Welcome. Before you take another bite, I need to tell you something doctors wish more people knew. In the next few minutes, you're going to discover that some of your favorite foods, foods you've probably eaten dozens of times this month alone, are silently attacking your joints right now. And if you're over 40, this video might literally change the rest of your life. Let me ask you something. How many mornings have you woken up and felt that stiffness in your knees? That sharp pain when you grip something? Maybe you've convinced yourself it's just getting older. But what if I told you that pain might be preventable? What if the food on your plate tonight is directly responsible for the inflammation in your joints tomorrow? Here's what most people don't realize. Arthritis isn't just about age or genetics. Arthritis is about inflammation. And inflammation is about what you eat. The choices you're making at breakfast, lunch, and dinner are either fighting that inflammation or fueling it. There's no neutral ground. Your food is either healing your joints or hurting them. And right now, most of you are probably hurting them without even knowing it. I've spent weeks researching the 15 foods that are doing the most damage. These aren't theoretical dangers. These are foods backed by peer-reviewed research, studied by doctors and nutritionists. Foods that have been proven to trigger joint pain and accelerate arthritis symptoms. Some of these foods are in your pantry right now. Some are probably in your refrigerator. And the terrifying part, most people with arthritis eat at least 5 of these regularly. Let's start with the worst offender. The one thing that's destroying your joints faster than almost anything else. Number 1 is soda and sugary drinks. And I'm not just talking about the obvious danger of sugar. When you drink a soda, something specific happens inside your body. That high fructose content doesn't just make you gain weight. It does something far more insidious. It stimulates your body to produce pro-inflammatory cytokines. Essentially, it's telling your immune system to attack your joints. And here's what makes it worse. When sugar hits your bloodstream, it triggers the formation of advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. AGEs are like little inflammatory bombs. They accumulate in your joint tissue and create oxidative stress that literally accelerates the breakdown of cartilage. A major study from the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that people who regularly consumed sugar-sweetened beverages had significantly higher uric acid levels, which directly triggers gout. And gout isn't just another form of arthritis. It's one of the most painful. People describe gout attacks as feeling like your joint is on fire. The connection is undeniable. Soda, high uric acid, joint destruction. If you're drinking even one sugary beverage a day, you're essentially choosing joint pain. But here's where it gets worse. Most people think switching to diet soda solves the problem. Number 2 is diet soda, and this is where the story takes a dangerous turn. Artificial sweeteners like aspartame have been studied extensively, and the evidence is troubling. Research shows that aspartame can induce systemic inflammation and oxidative stress, the exact same conditions that worsen arthritis. But that's not even the primary danger. Diet sodas mess with your hunger signals and your gut bacteria in ways that paradoxically cause weight gain, despite having almost no calories. Why does that matter? Because extra weight means extra stress on your joints, especially your knees and hips. You're essentially putting on a weighted vest and then wondering why your arthritis got worse. A 2015 study found that aspartame altered immune responses in ways that increased inflammation markers. If you're drinking diet soda thinking you're making the healthy choice, you're actually making it worse. Now, let's talk about something that seems innocent but is absolutely devastating for your joints. Number 3 is white bread. This one surprises people because bread feels healthy. It's carbs, right? But white bread is specifically refined flour with all the beneficial fiber, vitamins, and minerals stripped out. What's left is essentially pure starch. When you eat white bread, your blood sugar spikes violently. That spike triggers your pancreas to pump out insulin. And here's the problem. Insulin is pro-inflammatory. A 2017 study in Nutrients found that diets high in refined grains are linked to elevated inflammatory markers across the board. People eating white bread regularly had significantly higher CRP levels, that's C-reactive protein, the inflammation marker doctors check to diagnose arthritis flare-ups. But the damage goes deeper. White bread lacks the anti-inflammatory nutrients found in whole grains. You're not just eating empty calories, you're eating inflammatory calories. And if you're eating white bread multiple times a day, you're creating a constant inflammatory state in your body. By the time you feel joint pain at dinner, the damage has been accumulating since breakfast. This next one is going to sound dramatic, but the science backs it up. Number 4 is bacon. Bacon tastes amazing, which is exactly why it's so dangerous. That flavor comes from saturated fat and a process called cooking at high temperature, which creates advanced glycation end products, AGEs again, those inflammatory bongs we talked about earlier. A major study in Frontiers in Immunology found that diets rich in saturated fats significantly elevate systemic inflammation. But here's what most people miss. Bacon isn't just about the saturated fat. It's also loaded with sodium. That excessive salt causes your body to retain fluid, which intensifies swelling in your joints. You eat bacon for breakfast, your joints swell for the next 6 hours, and you have no idea the two are connected. The inflammation from one serving of bacon can last all day. And if you're eating it multiple times a week, you're never giving your joints a chance to recover. The foods get progressively worse, and this next category is particularly insidious because it's everywhere. Number 5 is potato chips and fried foods in general. Potato chips are engineered to be addictive. That's not an accident, that's intentional. But from a joint health perspective, they're a disaster in a bag. The problem is trans fats. When potatoes are fried at high temperatures, the oils transform into trans fats, which are known to increase systemic inflammation dramatically. A major 2006 study in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology found that diets high in trans and saturated fats elevate inflammatory cytokines that directly contribute to arthritis flare-ups. But here's what most people miss. Bacon isn't just about the saturated fat, it's also loaded with salt. That excessive salt causes your body to retain fluid, which intensifies swelling in your joints. You eat bacon for breakfast, your joints swell for the next 6 hours, and you have no idea the two are connected. The inflammation from one serving of bacon can last all day. And if you're eating it multiple times a week, you're never giving your joints a chance to recover. The foods get progressively worse. And this next category is particularly insidious because it's everywhere. Number 5 is potato chips and fried foods in general. Potato chips are engineered to be addictive. That's not an accident. That's intentional. But from a joint health perspective, they're a disaster in a bag. The problem is trans fats. When potatoes are fried at high temperatures, the oils transform into trans fats, which are known to increase systemic inflammation dramatically. A major 2006 study in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology found that diets high in trans and saturated fats elevate inflammatory cytokines that directly contribute to arthritis flare-ups. But chips have a double threat. They're also loaded with salt. That excessive sodium causes water retention, raises blood pressure, and amplifies inflammation. You think you're just eating a snack, but you're actually creating a perfect storm for joint inflammation. And because chips are addictive and readily available, many people eat them daily without realizing they're actively worsening their arthritis. Now we're getting into the foods that most people don't associate with joint health at all. Number 6 is beer. And I want to be clear, this isn't about moderation in the typical sense. Even moderate beer consumption has 3 specific problems for arthritis. First, beer contains gluten, which triggers inflammation in people sensitive to it. Second, beer is rich in purines, which your body converts to uric acid. High uric acid levels cause gout. Remember, gout is arthritis. It's not just joint pain, it's a specific inflammatory disease. Third, The alcohol itself interferes with your body's ability to regulate inflammation. A 2021 study in Nutrients found that alcohol consumption increased rheumatoid arthritis severity by affecting immune pathways. But here's what makes beer particularly dangerous. Many people drink it socially, multiple times a week, without considering the cumulative inflammatory effect. By the time you feel a flare-up, you've been triggering it for weeks. This next food category is universally loved, which is exactly why it's so dangerous. Number 7 is ice cream. Ice cream contains two inflammation accelerators, saturated fat and refined sugar. When you eat ice cream, your blood sugar spikes, triggering inflammatory cytokine production. Simultaneously, the saturated fat is triggering inflammation in your adipose tissue, your fat cells. A 2020 study found that diets high in refined sugar and saturated fat actually accelerate inflammatory processes in rheumatoid arthritis patients by promoting oxidative stress. But ice cream has another hidden danger: calories. One serving of premium ice cream can be 300 to 400 calories, mostly from sugar and fat. Eat it regularly, and you're gaining weight. Extra weight means extra pressure on your knees, hips, and lower back. You're essentially intensifying your arthritis through multiple mechanisms at once: direct inflammation from the sugar and fat, plus joint stress from the weight gain. It's a double attack on your joint health. This next one is consumed by millions of people who think they're making a healthy choice. Number 8 is margarine. Margarine was invented as a healthy butter substitute. It's not. Margarine is loaded with trans fats, the worst type of fat for inflammation. Research from the Journal of Lipid Research demonstrated that diets high in trans fats significantly elevate inflammatory markers in the blood. But margarine's problems go beyond just trans fats. It's heavily processed, which means it's loaded with artificial additives and emulsifiers. These additives damage your gut health, which disrupts your immune system, which increases systemic inflammation. Additionally, margarine contains high levels of omega-6 fatty acids. If you're not balancing that with omega-3 fatty acids, you're creating an inflammatory imbalance in your body. When your omega-6 to omega-3 ratio is off, your body is in a chronic pro-inflammatory state. Replacing margarine with olive oil or avocado oil is one of the single most important dietary changes you can make for joint health. Now let's talk about one of the most common meals in America. Number 9 is pepperoni pizza. Pizza seems like a complete meal, which is exactly why it's so effective at damaging your joints. Let's break down what's happening. The cheese contains saturated fat, which triggers fat tissue inflammation. The pepperoni is processed meat, which contains advanced glycation end products and nitrates, both pro-inflammatory compounds. The dough is refined flour, which spikes your blood sugar and triggers inflammatory cytokine production. A 2024 study in cell biochemistry and biophysics highlighted that saturated fats trigger adipose tissue inflammation that directly exacerbates arthritis flare-ups. And then there's the sauce and toppings, high sodium and preservatives that cause water retention and joint swelling. When you eat pepperoni pizza, you're not just eating food. You're consuming a combination of substances specifically designed to trigger inflammation across multiple pathways simultaneously. It's a perfect inflammatory storm on a plate. This next category includes foods that seem harmless, but are quietly destroying your joints. Number 10 is instant noodles. Instant noodles are convenience food, which is why they're consumed by hundreds of millions of people. But from a joint health perspective, they're a disaster. First, they're loaded with sodium. Excessive sodium raises blood pressure and amplifies inflammatory responses throughout your body. Second, they typically contain monosodium glutamate, MSG, which can trigger inflammation, particularly in sensitive individuals. Third, the oils used to fry instant noodles are high in omega-6 fatty acids, which further imbalances your omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. A 2012 study in the Journal of Nutrition and Metabolism found that diets rich in omega-6 fatty acids increase pro-inflammatory cytokine production. This imbalance is a direct trigger for arthritis symptoms. The solution is simple. Switch to oils with a better fatty acid profile. Olive oil and flaxseed oil have much healthier ratios and actually contain anti-inflammatory compounds. If you're currently cooking with grapeseed oil, changing that one thing could meaningfully reduce your joint pain. This next food is deceptively dangerous because of how it's prepared. Number 12 is French fries. French fries are fried at extremely high temperatures, which transforms the oils into trans fats and creates massive amounts of advanced glycation end products, AGEs. Remember, AGEs accumulate in your joint tissue and cause oxidative stress that accelerates cartilage breakdown. Additionally, the oils used to frying are typically high in omega-6 fatty acids, which further imbalances your fatty acid ratio toward pro-inflammatory compounds. And then there's the salt. French fries are loaded with it, which causes water retention and raises blood pressure. A 2018 study emphasized that omega-6 fatty acids in frying oils can further imbalance the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. When you eat French fries, you're consuming a concentrated source of multiple inflammatory compounds simultaneously. It's one of the quickest ways to trigger joint pain. Here's another food that seems innocent but directly impacts your joint health. Number 13 is white rice. White rice has a high glycemic index, which means eating it causes rapid blood sugar and insulin spikes. Those spikes trigger the production of pro-inflammatory markers like interleukin-6 and tumor necrosis factor alpha. A 2020 study in the Journal of the American Heart Association found that diets high in refined grains, like white rice, are associated with significantly higher systemic inflammation. This is especially critical if you have rheumatoid arthritis, where diet has a direct impact on flare-up frequency and intensity. The solution is switching to brown rice or quinoa, which have a lower glycemic index and won't trigger those inflammatory blood sugar spikes. One substitution at 3 meals a day could meaningfully reduce your daily inflammatory load. Now we're getting into desserts, and this is where things get really personal for most people. Number 14 is cheesecake. Cheesecake is essentially concentrated saturated fat and refined sugar. When you eat it, your blood sugar spikes violently, triggering inflammatory cytokine production. The saturated fat simultaneously triggers inflammation in your fat tissue. A 2020 study in the Journal of Inflammation Research found that saturated fats trigger inflammation in adipose tissue that directly worsens metabolic health and contributes to arthritis flare-ups. The American Journal of Clinical Nutrition confirmed that diets high in refined sugars and fats elevate inflammatory markers significantly. Cheesecake is one of the most inflammatory foods you can eat because it combines the worst components, high saturated fat, high refined sugar, and high calories in a single dish. One slice can trigger inflammation for hours and contribute to weight gain that stresses your joints long term. And finally, the last food on this list that most people don't expect. Number 15 is corn-fed beef. Most people think beef is just beef, but the type of beef matters enormously for joint health. Corn-fed beef is high in saturated fats and omega-6 fatty acids. Grass-fed beef, by contrast, has more omega-3 fatty acids and antioxidants. The difference is massive. When you eat corn-fed beef regularly, you're consuming foods that promote inflammatory pathways. A 2006 study found that diets high in saturated fats from sources like corn-fed beef increase inflammatory markers, including C-reactive protein and interleukin-6, both commonly elevated in arthritis patients. This inflammation can lead to accelerated joint pain, stiffness, and degenerative changes. The simple fix? If you eat beef, choose grass-fed when possible. The omega-3 to omega-6 ratio is dramatically better, and it won't trigger the same inflammatory response. So here's what you need to understand about all 15 of these foods. It's not that each one is slightly bad for you. It's that each one is actively triggering inflammatory pathways in your body. And if you're eating several of these regularly, you're not just experiencing arthritis, you're feeding it. You're making it worse every single day. Think about your typical day. Maybe you had white bread for breakfast, a soda for lunch, French fries as a snack, and pepperoni pizza for dinner. That's 4 of the 15 most inflammatory foods in a single day. By tonight, your joints are in a state of acute inflammation. Your body is producing elevated levels of inflammatory cytokines. Your joints are swelling. And you're probably wondering why you feel so stiff and sore. The answer is sitting in your digestive system right now. Here's the important part. This isn't permanent. If you're eating these foods regularly, your arthritis symptoms are likely much worse than they need to be. But the reverse is also true. If you eliminate or dramatically reduce these foods, your inflammation will decrease, your joint pain will improve, your mobility will increase. Some people report significant improvement within weeks of changing their diet. Not months, weeks. The research is clear. The science is undeniable. Your food is either healing your joints or destroying them. And right now, most people are making the wrong choice every single meal. If you found this information useful, I need you to do 3 things. First, like this video. That helps us reach more people who desperately need this information. Second, subscribe to this channel. We release natural health tips every week, and you won't want to miss them. Third, comment below and tell us which of these foods surprised you most. Which one are you going to eliminate first? Your answer helps us understand what resonates with our community, and it reminds you that you're not alone in this journey. One final reminder, this information is educational and is not a substitute for professional medical advice. If you have arthritis or joint pain, consult with a healthcare provider to tailor dietary choices to your specific condition. But I can tell you this with absolute certainty. Eliminating even a few of these foods will change how you feel. Your joints will thank you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.